Hello, my name is Palandis Moore. I am a police officer in the state of Texas, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. And about a year ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma. Um, when I found out, it was quite shocking. At the time, I was in the going to school and trying to stay in school, and also trying to uh, finish out, get my credits high enough so I can apply for different police departments. So at the at the time I found out, I pretty much like gave up on school and gave up hope on everything else. My mindset was that I thought I was gonna die. Like most people that you know about who has cancer usually end up dying. So that was a pretty big deal when I found out. Uh, when I the day I found out, I called a couple of people. So it was during the time I called them; they were at work, so I didn't really get to talk to the people I wanted to let know first. But the first person who I told, who answered the phone when I called, was Amina Jackson. She, when I told her, I think she started crying a little bit, and at that point, I was like, it was it hit me hard. It's like this is real. Like, I mean, hey, you usually when you hear people that when you hear about people that have cancer, they usually deals with breast cancer, and that's the cancer that you hear about all the time. Like, you never really hear on the news about Hodgkin's lymphoma or anything like that. So that was a pretty big shocker to me to find out that I was the first person in my family to ever have cancer. So I'm like, who me? I got cancer? Like, but uh, I said, I mean, I'm gonna go through the treatments. I went to several different doctors that told me like, okay, we can get you to do this. It's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be all right. The doctors are who told me that everything's gonna be fine and they have nothing to worry about. So I took their word for it. Uh, I went through 2 months of chemo. I took chemo twice a week, every week for 2 months. And then after that, I did radiation. During the process of chemo, that probably was the worst feeling I ever had. Probably it was even more worse than having the flu. Like, the first day I took chemo, I was weak. I was ready to just throw up. I was taking chemo for about 6 hours. Like, every time I took chemo, it was like a 6 hour treatment. Every time I took chemo, like, they just feeding stuff into the body, and also at the same time, every time I took chemo, it was a new chemo they was put into my body every time. So my doctor had to warn me. He said, "Now I'm going to tell you that when we give you the chemo treatment, there's a possibility that later on in life that these symptoms that there might be um, cancers or different type of bodily function that will begin to fail, or something that might happen to you in the long term, is basically when I get in my 50s and 60s or 70s, or possibly couldn't happen at all." But he had to give me those warnings. I said, go ahead. And one of the things that hit me really hard was the fact that he told me it's a possibility I would never have kids. And the one thing I wanted to always do was build a family. I mean, have a career, build a family, and I mean, one, of course, have kids and have kids with my wife or whatever. And with that, he told me there's a possibility that that would never happen. So that hit me kind of hard, but I was like, you know what? For me to get better, I'm gonna have to go ahead and go through with it. Also, during me taking chemo, the police department that I was applying to in Texas called me back, and they told me that they wanted me to come down. And I've been waiting for about 2 years, 2 years to just really apply. I mean, 2 years to hear back from a police department saying that, okay, we want you to come down. We want you to come and try out for the police department. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I told my doctor, like, yeah, I want to go ahead and do this police department thing. He was like, well, you need to take these treatments. I was like, well, I mean, this is my dream. This is something I always wanted to do. So if I have to just give up on this chemo, then I'm just going to give up on, because I want to be a police officer. That's something I always want to do. I want to go out and serve. That's just something that's always been in my blood, was to just go and serve. But uh, I didn't have to worry really too much worried about that, because my doctor knew how much I wanted to be a police officer by me talking to him all the time, and he decided we're gonna readjust how we give you chemo, and that way we can make sure you get to your hiring process. Because I was in the Texas Police Department hiring process for about a couple of months, and then all of a sudden I found out that they was gonna start the academy in June. I was taking chemo in April and May, so I'm like, oh my goodness, June. Then that whole thing was just crazy. But just to fast forward a little bit, I found myself the whole thing together as a whole. I found myself becoming more humble, becoming more understanding of life, loving life more, and I decided that I wasn't going to stress about a lot of things that I used to stress about all the time, because really, once you find out you have cancer, you realize that life is too short to stress about anything. So um, at this point now, as of July, I think 12th, July 11th or 12th, uh, I'm cancer free, according to my radiation doctor. He told me that as of that day, I was cancer free. I got to go up and ring the bell down at the Methodist Hospital, and I was pretty happy. I was pretty excited. The cancer was in certain places in my body, my armpit, chest, under my neck, and really the only place you could really tell where it was under my neck, because I had like a large lump growing out of my neck. So um, it was co- it was quite life changing. But with that being said, the one thing I can tell people is don't if you do ever deal with something like that in life, or if life just get too hard for you, don't give up. Keep pushing, keep moving. I mean, I looked at the whole thing as a hurdle that I happened to just jump over, like one of the tallest hurdles in the world, and I just happened to get over it. Now it's just smooth sailing, and just keep on pushing, keep on moving.